Hi everyone, my name is Monique Tsosie, and I apologize I was unable to make the meeting this morning, so I'm doing a video of my own to discuss some of the questions for Module 2 and go over some of these questions. So Module 2 Discussion 1. And this is with Group B, Dr. Knight. So the first question here is, how are groups and communities of practice different? How are they alike? So what now? So when I was reading through this and figuring out, how I defined each of them. I felt like a group is more of people coming together and sharing knowledge or learning from one another. I felt like it was more of a formal setting and somewhat, I guess, you have to have the same interest as others, so maybe held together by the interest of whatever group you're a part of, like such as like a book club or um, something along those lines. So I felt it's more of, it could be that, but it also could be like randomly assigned. Like I think back to my workplace as far as like if I'm in meetings and sometimes I'm randomly assigned, like if it's a huge meeting. I've been in meetings before to where it's like 100 people or so, and this is via Zoom. So if I'm in a meeting on Zoom and there's like over 100 people or so in there, sometimes we're divided into small groups, little breakout groups. So I think of that, it could be like random, just random breakout groups that you're a part of. Um, so there's that. And also a community of practice. So when I think of a community of practice, I'm thinking something along the lines of like our cohort here, the Mesquite cohort. So we are all, of course, in this program together. We're passionate about our problem of practice. It's a little bit more like we have a goal in mind. We're working together towards, that goal. So it could mean that. And also, I think of it as like possibly specific trainings that could be like within work. And I work on a Starbucks team, so sometimes we go to trainings or like specific professional developments that have to do with Starbucks, or what we do as a coaching these students. So there's that one. And also I feel like a community of practice is more like a soundboard, right? So we're all communicating together and sharing ideas, sharing knowledge there. So, and this cohort, reading everyone's discussion posts, listening to different videos, we're all sharing knowledge, we're all exchanging that and building that. And I also feel that professional development could be in both, in a group and also with a community of practice, because a professional development, sometimes, working at ASU, they require you to have X amount of professional development hours, and you can choose what type of professional development you go to. And then also there's the other side, you could be required, this is professional development training that you have to go to. So it's not something like you chose, like this is something you're interested in. So I feel like it could fall in both categories there. Um, and then also, how are they alike? So how are groups and communities of practice alike? I feel like some of the things would be, both have information flowing. So whether you're a part of a group or a community of practice, or both, right? So both of those have different information flowing, that may be beneficial for the person. And of course there is communication, so learning is possibly happening. And I also felt like that this both could help fill the gaps of knowledge. So whether that could be formal or informal, learning something while you're in a group, learning something as a part of your community of practice. So I feel like when I kept thinking about, how do these two align together? What are some of the similarities? How are they alike? That's what I kept going back to, kind of like both foster some type of learning. Possibly there's knowledge that's being given in both areas, and I feel like both areas do have opportunity to be creative, right? To share different ideas and get some creativity flowing. And then another one, the next question. So, how can I positively influence my community of practice through participation in broader configurations of network? So, when I'm thinking of this, right, I'm thinking of all of the different departments I'm involved in and a part of at ASU. So I should have started off with that. So I work at ASU, I work at the Ed Plus Center in Scottsdale, and I am a success coach. So I'm not, I don't just belong to like that success coach part of it. So I am a success coach, yes, but the success coaching center is like, it could be like 150 other coaches and they're all on different teams. So I work with Starbucks students. So I'm on the Starbucks team, and there's like a military team, there's an undergraduate team. So there's a bunch of different teams that focus on a specific group of students. So I'm with Starbucks. That's one part of it. I also work with our enrollment coaches. So the enrollment centers, they're with us. So I do communicate with some of their supervisors, management, and work together on how to work better together as success coaches and enrollment coaches. And then also I sometimes attend meetings with different advisors. So there's a meeting, I believe it's usually like once a month or so. And advisors get together from all different colleges. So it's, ASU were a ton of different things, like Mary Lou Fulton Teachers College, WP Carey School of Business, the engineering school. So all of these colleges with ASU get together and they have this meeting, and they go over what practices are going on, share information back and forth. And as a success coach, I sometimes sit in those meetings and they ask, what do you need from us? What does the Success Coaching Center need from us? And then I let them know, or they tell us, like, make sure like the psychology department, have them email us versus calling us over the phone, because it's, email is faster. So little things like that, we all go over together. So I'm a part of that. I'm also a part of the culture committee. And I just kept thinking of all these areas that I'm a part of. But then there's my small team of 12 that I work very closely with. So I mentioned all of that because I'm a part of different areas within ASU, different departments. So I was thinking, how can I positively impact my, smaller community of practice? And I just kept going back to, I can bring things that I have learned from other areas, such as advising or the culture committee, the enrollment center. Like I can bring some of those back to my team specifically. And I feel like, in a sense, I kept thinking of like cross training. And I know it's not necessarily like I'm training in a formal setting when I'm communicating with these different departments, but I kept thinking of cross training or like cross knowledge, cross discipline, how are these individuals doing? What are these individuals doing? What is this department doing that could benefit my department? Like how can my department run smoother? So that's what I kept thinking about there. And I guess a specific example is I do have a a coworker, a friend that is on a military team. So all of her students are military students, and I'm on the Starbucks team. So all my students are Starbucks. And we were talking, and it was very informal. It was just, chit chat. And she started talking about how her team was getting together with another team, and they were collaborating, listening to a phone call of one of the coaches calling a student, and all of them were grading a call. All of them were coming together. So two different teams coming together to grade a call and, get feedback, like what is a love sandwich, right? So, what's something good you did, and then, what's an area of opportunity, and then ending, and this is also, something that I enjoyed it during your call. So she mentioned that to me. So of course I took that information and I presented it to my supervisor. So I feel like that's ways I'm, taking, whether it's a formal meeting that I'm sitting a part of, or also just, chit chat in the office on what others are doing to improve, to areas of opportunity for their team. So that's how I felt. A big part is learning. And I also wanted to mention, I'm going to find the quote. So in the communities of practice, I was thinking back to a broker, and on page 94, it states here, brokering often entails relations of multi-membership. So for the supervisor of the claims processing unit, spanning the boundary between workers and management is not always comfortable. She belongs at the same time to both practices and to neither. She is not quite a manager, either in management's eyes or in the eyes of the claims processor, who think of her as just a glorified processor. Nevertheless, her position of authority isolates her to a substantial extent from the rest of the unit. So I more so identify like as a broker, kind of being that middle person with all these different departments I work with. So somewhat along those lines. So I'm not a manager. I'm not a manager there, but I definitely do. I communicate with all these different departments, and I'm like the designated success coach on my team that communicates with all these different departments. So not all of the success coaches do it. There are, designated ones here and there with the team. So I felt more so like, no, I'm not a manager, but also I do have, some of that knowledge that possibly isolates me a little bit from the rest, and I'm able to bring that here to some of that information to the team. So there's that. And then the next question, so share some ideas you have for your first leadership challenge. It can be anything that helps build your leadership skills. So when I'm thinking of that, going back to how do I relate like a leadership challenge to my problem of practice, which is I felt was a little difficult to do. So my problem of practice is finding out from first generation college students how they define academic resilience and how it assists them through their online education. And I am unsure if that's going to be, I was trying to focus on how does academic resilience help first generation college students within their first year at ASU, but I don't know if I'm going to do that. I'm thinking just their time at ASU in general. So I really want to hear from the first generation college students and hear about their experience using a photo elicitation interview. So of course, everyone's experience is going to be a little different. So I feel like it's definitely important for myself to focus not only like on the outcome of like, oh, you graduated, that's great, but also like what contributed to that. or maybe not even graduated, like what contributed to you being successful in these classes. So that's my problem of practice, of course, still working on that. So how can what's a leadership idea that maybe I could tie into this problem of practice? I was thinking, so one, I haven't figured out how to find the first generation college students yet. So I do have a group of students, but there's no way for me to like label, these students identify as a first generation college student. So eventually, of course, possibly getting the approval from leadership to send out possibly like a survey of some sort to see who identifies as a first generation college student, so I can begin to work with those students. But as of now, I don't have that. But what I do have at the moment is, as a success coach, I'm doing outreach to students to see how classes are going, to see what they need, what type of support they need from me or from ASU, what resources do they need. So we have a whole, every Monday, it's usually every Monday or Thursday. So typically those 2 days, there's cases that are distributed to us. So we have cases like, I could have like 100 cases that say, these students, this group of students are going into a difficult course. And then I could have, like 50 cases like, these are students that have dropped classes. So these cases populate, and it's my job to reach out and figure out, what's going on. So I wanted to focus on these cases. The cases are, there's 2 cases. It's called first year course readiness. That is a student's first year at ASU. We want to see like, okay, these students are, this is their first session, whether it's like spring session A or spring session B. This is their first session at ASU. And there's also another case, first year student. So it's like, this is a freshman coming in. So both of them kind of tie in together, but it's a first time at ASU, or it's sorry. So let me just back up a little bit. So first year course readiness is this student, this is their first semester at ASU. This is their first class, their first session. Okay, that's one. And then first year student is like a freshman coming in. And of course, this is a freshman coming in. This is their first semester at ASU. And the difference is the first year course readiness, maybe it's a student that's coming in and they had college experience before, but this is just their first semester at ASU. So that's how the 2 differ. And I wanted to focus on those 2 because right now we are calling these students who are trying to figure out, what's going great in the class, what are some improvements that are needed that you need to make, and if the class is not going smooth, what challenges are you facing? So we're going into those type of conversations, being that this is week 2 of spring session A. So that's where we're at. So I wanted to share ideas on how other success coaches are approaching these conversations. So we have my team of 12 has, and we're the Starbucks team. We have a meeting every Wednesday. So I wanted to bring that discussion, an open discussion, to my team. So what I have noticed, and this is a little outside, the problem of practice, but more so like just leaning on more the leadership side of it. I have noticed in my team meetings that a lot of times there's not a lot of direction, and we go in, there's not really a clear agenda on what we will be covering. So there is a meeting recurring every Wednesday. Every Wednesday there's a meeting. There's no meeting minutes, there's no agenda usually. Usually we come in and then it's the supervisor asking all of us, hey, hey, everyone here, like, how is the week going? And everyone chimes in a little bit. And then he asks, he'll ask us, what do you need from me? What does this week look like for all of you? And then a lot of times it's, possibly like we don't really need anything. So then it's just kind of chit chatter, and then that's all it is for 1 hour. So I felt like that's an area of opportunity to um step into, some leadership skills here. So I was thinking, I already mentioned it to my boss last week on Wednesday. I let him know that I felt, that it would be helpful to start a Google Doc for our whole team so that we can go over meeting minutes, to take meeting minutes. And then, so that was kind of my way of going into it. Like, I think it would be helpful that we have like an agenda on what we're going to talk about. And then also an area to where their coaches on my team, they can let us know this is what I want to talk about this upcoming week. It gives them a voice also. So then they remember that also throughout the week. And then of course, if one of us is out, right? If one of us is out on a Wednesday, then whatever we discussed is in the meeting minutes so they can go back to it. There have been a lot of changes in the department very recently. So people come back and they're like, what happened? And then sometimes we forget, like, oh, that person wasn't there on Monday or Wednesday, so they don't know. So sometimes that, goes over our head there. So that was, I guess, very small part of the leadership, but I feel like that was a step into practicing some leadership skills of volunteering to create this Google Doc, and also volunteering to create like the agenda, and then introducing it to everyone at the team meeting on Wednesday, and then also myself taking the meeting minutes. So for taking the meeting minutes for the team. So that's one part of it, and very small part of the leadership challenge. But the bulk of it is for me to open up the discussion with my other success coaches, so other colleagues, on how they are approaching the conversations with the first year readiness cases and the first year student cases. And going over like what adjustments could we make as a team, as success coaches. um, I feel like that's where I'm at with it. And I know this isn't exactly like full on, like, this is your problem of practice area, because of course I want to focus on first generation students, but I feel like it's a small step closer, because a small step closer of leadership, opening up this discussion, because eventually I do want to interview students, first generation college students, and do like a photo elicitation interview. And I feel like sometimes those interviews could be a little uncomfortable, and as an interviewer also. So I feel like this is like a small step to that, maybe getting a little bit more confidence with speaking and with interviewing people. Of course, I'm not going in and interviewing my colleagues, but I was thinking about bringing maybe like 2 or 3 questions to the meeting on Wednesday. Not just like, how are you approaching these calls, but maybe thinking of 2 or 3 questions that I could bring. So it's not a formal interview of them, but, just kind of opening that discussion to everyone. I feel like that may help a little bit with moving in the right way with leadership, and me moving in the right way of feeling a little bit more confident of bringing questions, and having a discussion. So that's it. And thank you for watching. And I will respond to everyone else. And I did watch the discussion of the other group. So awesome job. I will respond in written format. Oh, let me, I have to